Yellow paint isn't a problem, and most of you complaining about it are hypocrites. Let's talk about it, shall we? I actually had another video in mind talking about how the average person doesn't want game balance, but with the recent release of the latest Final Fantasy VII Remake game, and once more, the yellow etchings marking people's way forward, we're getting the same tired arguments and whining we've been getting over and over again. I'm tired of games being made for the lowest common denominator, or we didn't have those things back in the day and we just figured it out. To which I think back, did we play different games back in the day? How old are you to be saying this? What dimension are you from? Because it isn't this one. Honestly, this entire argument, there's only two valid stances for anyone complaining about the pain issue. Your immersion being broken and wanting the option to be toggleable. Immersion? Fair, totally fine. You want to fully insert yourself into a video game and you're getting into the flow state of becoming the character. You aren't a player playing a game, you are interacting with the game in such a fusion state that you become the person or thing on screen. You are in the world. It feels put together in a way that all the pieces make sense, only to see something so jarring and lacking a sense that it snaps you out of your experience. For a lot of games that are using yellow paint markers to guide progression, there's very little reason, if any, for it to be there. What, some random person just happened to drop it in this one particular spot that just so happens to be the direction you need to go 100 plus times over a multiple hour long experience? Yeah, I get that being off-putting and not making sense, so I understand and accept that viewpoint of not wanting it at all. With this one, this seems like an easy fix, and I'm putting massive quotation marks on that one when I say easy. But it seems to me people don't mind being guided by markers as long as it feels natural and tangible for the world that it's in. God of War, for example, used the same color-coded pathways, but was less scrutinized over it due to the lore implications of the markers being left by Kratos' dead wife, who literally could see into the future and thus was guiding her husband and son on the journey. Hi-Fi Rush literally had arrows point you in the proper direction. However, they were used as a tongue-in-cheek reference to this that made sense since the evil corporation you were fighting literally bought the rights to the arrow and assigned a random employee to just place them everywhere, and it just so happens that they point you in the right direction. Wanting that natural cohesion in your experience to make it all feel good is entirely fair and something I can 100% get behind. As for the second subject of wanting the ability to turn it off, fair. If you want to be allowed to get lost and put yourself in failure states like the games of old, I think the players should have that right. However, if games did add this feature, gamers lose the right to ever complain about getting lost again. This would be like not using your GPS then complaining about how pathways to your location aren't clear enough. At that point, it's clear that you don't want discussion or actually want to feel like you found the path. You just want to be babied enough to think you're smarter than you actually are and should be bullied for your stupidity. Now here's where we get mean, because literally every other argument in this discussion I've seen is just false or inaccurate. Back in the day, we just figured it out on our own, and things made even less sense then than they do now. To which I ask again, what world are you from? What dimension? It isn't this one though, because once you let go of your blind nostalgia of your gaming past and actually take a step back to think about all the games you played, you'll remember the multitude where you didn't just figure it out. Honestly, be truthful with yourself here and now. Every single game you played during your youth, did you actually beat them all? You never once got stuck? You never once spent hours in an RPG circling between every place you had been to find the one trigger to advance? Every single game you played, you just beat without a shred of help from anywhere else? Now there are going to be some of you who are kidding yourselves and are nodding and saying, yeah, I just did. I was a god gamer. Their heads are too far up their own ass, and there's no helping them or even talking to them. But for everyone else out there who's being real with themselves and are starting to realize that maybe we didn't just figure it out. That isn't to say that you never did get through a block on your own, or that you never stumbled on the right path on your own. It's more to say that on average, for every game you did make it through along just fine, there was one you're probably remembering right now that you had to have a friend tell you where to go to advance, or you went onto a site or a forum to ask for help, which is okay, but kind of proves my point. That said, let's do a little experiment to prove my point even more so, shall we? For the late 20-year-olds and early 30-year-olds out there, you know these three guys, right? The Reggies from Gen 3 Pokemon? To the people who said, you just figured things out back in the day, read this. Go on, I'll wait. No. I see you scrolling towards Google right now. Googling isn't figuring it out, so I'll sit here and wait for you to translate. Go ahead, pause the video and read what this says. I'll wait. Oh, what? You don't know how to read Braille? So how did you figure out how to catch the Reggies? Did someone have to tell you, or you read a strategy guide? I'm sorry, how is having someone tell you how to advance figuring it out on your own? Or does that not count for reasons? Are you starting to understand what I'm getting at here? For every one kid out there who happened to see a Braille translation sheet in their 4th grade social studies classroom and handwrote each letter in painstaking detail to take home and slowly translate what was said here, me. That was me, by the way. I might be slightly autistic. There are about 100 who had someone tell them what to do, pull up game facts, use the strategy guide they bought alongside the game, call a hotline, etc. But at what point are we going to start kidding ourselves? And at what point are we going to decide what is and isn't just figuring it out? Why is having someone tell you how to advance somehow figuring it out on your own, as opposed to having the devs try and guide you down the correct path? And that is the point of the yellow paint devs use to guide people forward. It's to stop players from reaching that failure or stop point that we all get to in our games that made us not want to try anymore. We've all been there too, where no matter how hard we tried, just couldn't figure out the one trigger to advance the story or plot. And equally so, it leads to horrible moments for the devs. Imagine spending massive chunks of your life, and I do mean massive for most games, on average taking anywhere from 2 to 6 years to develop on the norm, only to be told that one section you worked on specifically didn't get noticed by players. They didn't see it or were confused by the steps beforehand and thus didn't interact with it. Doesn't that sound frustrating? Wouldn't you want to create things that guide players forward so they see your own work and effort you put in? Look, I get it. You're seeing that same yellow paint everywhere and it's frustrating. It feels lazy, but I'm almost willing to bet that it's used because of the common zeitgeist of yellow now meaning go here, as well as it being a good striking color to draw the eye compared to the backdrops of most games. And honestly, gamers do have trouble breaking past those norms set by the industry. I mean, according to the Bulletstorm devs, we won't even shoot non-red barrels. Portal now has a now famous, or perhaps infamous, creator commentary on how hard it was to get the players to even look up. That said, I really just want this entire false narrative of, well, we just figured it out back in the day, to die, because it isn't true. There used to be hotlines you could call if you couldn't figure out the way forward. It was the norm to be offered a strategy guide upon buying a game. GameFAQs at its peak was in the top 151st most visited websites on the planet. What part of any of that is just figuring it out? Devs just don't want its players getting stuck, and having people connect on the same wavelength and pattern as someone from across a screen is terribly hard, like insanely so. And as such, they do what they can to avoid it. It's just that simple. You can call it lazy, sure. You can want more immersive options to guide you forward, equally fair. You can even want the option to be allowed to get lost. That's your right. But if you're part of this "we just figured it out back in the day" crowd, and you ever once opened GameFAQs, used a strategy guide, downloaded an add-on for quests in your MMORPG, had a friend tell you the way forward, or called a hotline, you're an idiot and a hypocrite, because none of that is just figuring it out. Alright, you know what's going on here. My just general end of the video thoughts where I just kind of ramble, no script, just talk about whatever kind of thing. First off, I want to apologize for taking so long to get to my next major video. Look, it's just so much easier just hitting record and doing an hour-long LP and just getting it up and running to the next thing. It's so much easier than doing all this editing and stuff. Even though I'm not gonna sit here and act like I'm like any Lythera or anything like that, or any Lixian or any other amazing editor that actually can do amazing shit. But you know, it's still difficult and takes time, especially when I'm so busy now. But yeah. So I'll be going to Gen Con in August, so that's gonna be a neat thing. Anything else? Oh, right. I've been talking about like the general video game industry news through my LPs and stuff, so probably not gonna put up anything that I didn't put up there. But I do want to talk about one thing I forgot to add. They have officially announced the release date of Arcane, the second season of the Arcane League of Legends show. And it's set to come out November of 2024. So I'm looking forward to that. As of right now, they said this is going to be the final season, but they have teased and talk about how there's more than likely going to be other things. I mean, for anyone who plays League of Legends, there's so many other places they can go. So right now they're just covering Zaun and Piltover. There's um Vandal City, like where that's where the Yordles come from. There's Noxus, where one of the main chicks in that show comes from, and Demacia, obviously. There's Freljord. There's what's the desert region called? Shit. Shurima. All the different tribes in Shurima. There's Acathia. There's the Void, which is kind of like one of the major threats starting to kill everyone in there, as well as the shit. What is Aatrox called again? I forgot what Aatrox is called. Oh, the Darken, which is kind of like interdimensional demons trying to take over and destroy the place. There's outer space, technically, with people like Asoul and quite literally the gods of the world or the aspects of the world, like in Targon. There's so many other places they can go. So I'm hoping that this is just the final season. They have announced that this is the final season of Arcane, which is going to be the final season of the Piltover Zaun story. And I'm hoping that we get a lot more other things. Because if Arcane Season 2 is anywhere near as good as Arcane Season 1, they need to keep going with these things. But that's about it. So, I'm going to keep going with my LPs. I'm telling you right now, I'm probably not playing SMT5 Vengeance on the channel. I have way too much to play already. I'm still trying to finish Persona 3 Reload. I have to go play Elden Ring DLC next week. And then the week after that, I have Dawn Trail. Yeah, that's not happening for me to also play SMT Vengeance on the channel. When I'm going to my trip, I'm probably going to download it and play it on my trip. So that'll be fun. Either way, I want everyone out there to have a good morning, evening, day, or night, wherever you're at. But for right now, I am out. Later.